If you've played in any tribal casino, you know what I'm talking about. Bingo slot machines and Class 2 gaming. We're breaking it down in this video. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cowboy Slot channel. This video has been the most common requested video I have gotten because there are a lot of states out there, Florida and Oklahoma in particular, that have a lot of these casinos, and we're going to talk about them today. Just to give you a little background on myself, the second casino that I ever worked at was a Class 2 gaming facility, and we actually had the bingo slots, and I worked on the bingo slots, so I do know a lot about them and how they work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in this video, make it easier for you guys rather than just spewing out a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo about how they work. I'm going to give you guys a visual. So I know I'm a visual learner, so if you are a visual learner, it'll help. To kind of give you guys a visual of what the casino operates like in a Class 2 facility and give you guys a little bit better idea to kind of help you out to understand it a little bit better. So before we really dive in, you have to understand where Class 2 gaming comes from. So in the 1980s, the federal government passed the Indian Gaming Regulations Act. That act allowed for the tribes of the land to open up their own facilities. And there's three different classes of gaming that are defined by the Act. The first would be Class 1 gaming, which is your charitable gaming and stuff like that, which really doesn't apply. Class 2 gaming, which is what most Indian tribes went with, is bingo-based slot machines and slot games. And Class 2 also considers lottery, scratch-offs, pull tabs, stuff like that. But really, we're going to focus just on those bingo machines. And then Class 3 would be the Las Vegas style games and regular slot machines that are run by a random number generator. So that is kind of the base of where Class 2 comes from, and a lot of Indian tribes decided to go with Class 2 as opposed to Class 3 because of two main reasons, and these are important. Number one reason, a Class 2 facility is not required to pay federal tax to the federal government. So a lot of Indian tribes really liked that. Second main reason, and this is a big one that affects you guys directly if you're playing at these casinos, and this is something that really, when I say that these Class 2 machines are different, this plays a huge part. So Class 2 facilities are self-regulated entirely. So in a normal casino, in a Class 3 casino, that casino has their own governing agency for gaming, but then they also have to report to the state's gaming commission. Class 2 facilities do not have to report to the state's gaming commission. They are entirely self-regulated and they are on their own, which means, and this is the part that affects you guys, in a Class 2 facility, they are legally allowed to and free to change the odds anytime they want to. They can pretty much put the odds in whatever range that they want to. There's really not a, the regulations are much looser on Class 2 as opposed to Class 3 gaming. So just be aware when you're playing in a Class 2 facility that they really have very loose regulations that they have to follow. And I do have some questions pulled up here that I'm going to go over, a lot of questions from you guys. So if I'm glancing over here, I'm just wanting to make sure that I cover everything. So now I'm going to give you that visual, because I know I told you I'd give you a visual on how they work. So let's talk about that. So first off, erase the whole thought of the casino out of your mind. So picture this. Picture you are walking into a bingo hall. What's the first thing you do? You buy cards. You buy bingo cards. Essentially, your money is going towards the bingo card. And everybody in the hall gets in and they all sit down and you start playing, and there's one set of numbers that the caller is pulling out. So everybody on the floor has different cards, but the caller is pulling out the same numbers for all of those cards. Well, what happens is eventually you get to a point, depending on the pattern that the bingo hall says they're looking for, eventually you get to the point that somebody on that game has to win. And when somebody does win, when they yell out bingo and they win, then the balls get renewed and it goes into a second game, usually with a different pattern. That is exactly how these machines work, only they do it on a millisecond level. So, with Class 2 facilities, you are not playing against the machine or against a random number generator. You are playing in a pool of everybody else. So the machine, all the machine does is generate a card, and then what it does is it pulls the ball numbers off of a central server. And those numbers at that same millisecond are going to everybody else on the floor. So if you have two players at a bingo machine and both of them press the button at the exact same millisecond, they're going to get the exact same set of numbers, just with a different card. And what happens is eventually somebody on that floor has to win with that pull of numbers. So out of every pull of numbers, there has to be a winner somewhere on the floor. And it can be multiple people, just like in the game of bingo. If you're looking for a 5-in-a-line bingo pattern, a bunch of people can win. When it comes to jackpots, how that works is, again, I'll give you a bingo example. So you're sitting in the bingo hall, and the pattern that the caller gives you is we're looking for a complete coverall. And if you get the coverall in 48 numbers or less, you get the big jackpot. Okay. Does that always happen? No, because it's a harder pattern to obtain. But even if you surpass the 48th number, somebody's going to win a consolation prize, just like the game of bingo and just like the bingo slots work. So that leads me into my first question that I get is, do bingo slot machines rely on a random number generator like regular Class 3 slot machines? The answer is no, they actually don't. So the slot machine itself, it looks like a slot machine. It plays like a slot machine. It sounds like a slot machine. It's made by the same people that make slot machines. But the inner workings of it are completely different. All the machine does is it generates a card. That's it. And the wheels really are just for, looks and fun. It generates a card and it pulls those numbers from the central server. The central server then sends those numbers out to everybody and eventually somebody wins. That's exactly how the machines work. So they do not rely on a random number generator like other slot machines do. Which leads me into my next question. Do you have better or worse odds? The answer is you actually have worse odds for a couple different reasons. Number one, there is that regulatory factor. Because remember, a Class 3 facility has a lot of different people in the ladder to answer to, and a pretty set rule of all of your machines have to be this payout or in this range, and they have to stay within that range. Class 2 facilities do not have to do that, guys. So your odds are worse because they can, in a Class 2 facility, they can change the odds for different various reasons, and they can pretty much do it anytime they want to. So that's reason number one why your odds are a little bit less. Reason number two is because rather than you playing just the machine, you're actually playing all the other players in the bingo hall. So crowd size takes into effect. My personal tip that I would give, and this is just me personally, just like a game of bingo, if you go to a bingo hall when it's extremely busy and packed, there's a lot more people playing, there's a lot more cards, so chances are somebody's going to get the pattern before you do. But if you go when the bingo hall is really, really slow, you can kind of have the edge a little bit better. Not saying that you're going to have a definite edge, but you can kind of have a little better of an edge. And from working in the facility, what I noticed is we tended to pay out bigger jackpots when the casino was less busy. We paid out a lot of jackpots when the casino was busy, but we paid out usually bigger jackpots when the casino was not as busy because there was not as many players on the floor at the time. Because again, you're playing against everybody else with Class 2 games. So are the odds worse? Yes, they are. The next question that I get asked a lot, on the bingo machines, the player has the option to change the bingo card. And I know a lot of people, they'll sit there and they'll tap, 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 and they'll try to change the bingo card. Does that change your odds or make it any better? The answer is no. And I'll give you a visual as to why. So again, with a game of bingo, if you go into a bingo hall, you can buy a bingo sheet with 6 different squares, or you can buy a bingo sheet with 3 different squares, and just because you have more squares does not really necessarily make your odds any better. Obviously that's a little bit different because with the game of bingo you can play multiple squares, but with a Class 2 bingo machine you only get 1 square. Does it change your odds? Not really. It's not going to change the way the numbers come out of the server or anything like that. So changing the card really has no effect whatsoever on a bingo slot machine. Now, can you still win big amounts of money on a bingo machine? And the answer is yes. I personally have had many days going into work at this Class 2 facility, and we paid out some pretty big jackpots. Was it frequent? No, it wasn't frequent, but we still paid them. They were still out there. So you do have still the chance to get a big jackpot. But really, guys, the main thing with Class 2 gaming and Indian tribal gaming and stuff like that is just understand that those casinos, they can operate differently, so they really have more power. More power is given to the casino than with a Class 3 facility, because again, with a Class 2, they do have the ability to change up how the server is distributing the balls and so on and so forth. So just always keep that in mind. And again, guys, this video is only applicable to Class 2 gaming facilities. Not every Indian tribe has Class 2 gaming. There's a lot of Indian tribes. So, for example, in the state of Arizona, most, actually now all of the Indian tribes are Class 3 gaming. So just because it's an Indian tribe does not make it a Class 2 facility. Indian tribes can still be Class 3 as long as they have that agreement with the state. And in those facilities, again, they do have to answer to the state. So when I'm speaking of regulations and stuff like that, really, I'm only talking about Class 2 facilities. And there are some other types of gaming out there, guys. So there are skill-based games. There's a lot of states that use skill-based games. Wyoming is one of them. I know Washington State is one of them. And I believe Montana is one of them as well, that use skill-based gaming, which those work entirely different too, and we will get into that in another video. I actually I'm working on a project right now to get you guys a little inside look at to how the skill machines work and so on and so forth. So, with Class 2 gaming, pretty much everything that you're going to see is predetermined. Because again, the machine is not relying on a random number generator. It's going to have that same card, and that card's going to sit there, and it's just going to wait for the next cycle of balls to come through. And then, it'll change the card on the next game. So, it's not as, it does not work the same way as regular Class 3 slots. Is there any advantage or tip that I can give you to better your chances in a Class 2 facility? Really, guys, I wish there was, but to be honest, there really isn't, just because of the way Class 2 facilities work. My advice, you can still play at them, you can still win. I'm not saying you can't win at them, but your chances are a lot lower than at a Class 2 facility. So just keep that in mind. And I know there's a lot of different articles and stuff out there about Class 2 facilities, so I hope I've been able to give you guys a good visual breakdown of exactly how they work, and hopefully help you to understand those games a little bit better. So I will have future videos coming out that detail a lot more, but that has been a little video wrap up of exactly how Class 2 gaming works and exactly what is all behind the scenes of it. So anyway, guys, thank you again so much for watching. I just passed 10,000 subscribers, which is amazing considering I just started the channel less than a month ago. So be sure to follow, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more tips, but I wanted to get on here and make this video because a lot of people keep asking me about Class 2 gaming. So anyway, guys, have a great rest of your day, and as always, best of luck to you.